What's going on, everybody? This is Randall Barnes, the founder of HBCU Post and the host of HBCU Post Radio, in the building for a very special breakdown on today, where I combine two of my loves, media and HBCUs. Is combined together. We're talking about HBCU media, HBCU media rights, and also HBCU sports accessibility. And first and foremost, I want to say, if you have not read my article about the viewership numbers for the Bayou Classic from 2012 to 2022, make sure to head over to hbcupost.com to read that. Honestly, it's one of the best articles I've ever written. It took a lot of research, a lot of fighting to get those numbers. And I really appreciate everyone that's liked it, shared it, read it. And I hope it hopefully makes a change in how we look at HBCU media, especially with sports, and also really our negotiation tactics. Because I think that, especially for games such as the Bayou Classic, that's a big classic. And a lot of folks know about it. And oftentimes for normal years, that's for the championship. And like it was this year. So normally that's for the championship, the SWAC championship, and we see whoever plays in the East. So, you know, I think that's a very important game. We have to look at it that way, but there's other important games as well. And I want to assert this to start off this video. I believe that media viewership is directly correlated with accessibility. The desire of a viewer to watch a particular media product, as well as marketing, and also the time slot, if we're talking about TV, that's important as well. But I believe that that's not more important than accessibility. Because if you can't watch the program or the game or what have you that you want to see, that's going to hurt the viewership. And I think that's what HBCUs go through, and that's the biggest problem that we have in the media landscape. We have so many options to consume and watch media versus traditional media, such as TV shows, but also sports. But is our content accessible on those platforms? And if it's not, which is not, you cannot make the argument that HBCUs do not get viewership in sports games. You can't make that argument, and you can't properly value your product. So there's been a lot of discussion about HBCU sports media rights, especially with ESPN being the primary provider for a lot of the HBCU football games, as they have primary rights for the SWAC, the MEAC, and the SIAC. So that happens. That's what it is for HBCU football, right? But we've had HBCU Go and HBCU League Pass Plus that this year they've come in and they stream games that ESPN has not had on their schedule. In full disclosure, HBCU Post is a streaming partner for HBCU League Pass Plus. That's the home team. That's the family. I do not want y'all to think this is biased. We're just talking about the numbers in general, but that does matter for accessibility for HBCU Go and HBCU League Pass Plus. But the thing about it is that when we talk about ESPN having the games, and we talk about, of course, HBCU League Pass Plus, HBCU Go, NBC, before the Bayou Classic, they had the Morehouse-Howard game in New York. The argument against HBCU Sports is that it doesn't do well in viewership. So here's the thing. I want to use the numbers to tell the story of how HBCU football does bring in viewership, and the big problem that we run into is accessibility, and I believe that that hurts how we value the sports product. So, of course, on HBCUpost.com, we broke down the numbers for the past 10 years of the Bayou Classic. So I have it on the screen right here. These were the numbers. 2012, 2014, it was still on NBC. 2015, it goes to NBC Sports Network. It drops 85%. Then you see that number that's middling. It doesn't hit over 300,000 on cable because NBC Sports Network was on cable. The NBC channel is a network channel. So that's in a basic cable package that normally everyone gets, even if you don't have streaming, if you don't have a premium cable package, basic cable, you can get it, right? So it goes back to NBC this year, 2022, and it jumps to 720,000 viewers. And it went up 386% in viewership. And I'm not that good at math. I'm great at reading, writing, speaking, but I'm not that great at math. So I used the calculator, and the percentage increase was correct. 386% viewership leap once the Bayou Classic was accessible again. And that accessibility was because it was on network television. And for the longest time, the Bayou Classic was the only HBCU football game that was on network television. But I want to bring this up. What I want to bring up is that the Bayou Classic went off network television in 2014. From 2015 to 2021, we had only one other game that was on network television, and that was a Celebration Bowl on ABC that pits the MEAC and SWAC champion against one another to crown what we call a national HBCU champion, right? So the numbers you see on the screen, these are the 2016 numbers to the 2021 numbers. So I want someone to tell me how HBCUs don't get viewership. That's the part I'm confused about. So you look at the numbers, 2.7 million viewers for Grambling versus North Carolina Central. Of course, you have the 2021 Celebration Bowl. They had Jackson State versus South Carolina State. That was Deion Sanders' first Celebration Bowl. The numbers were high. So mind you, this is the only HBCU football game before now the Bayou Classic is back on NBC that's on network television. And when I say network television, to specify, ABC, NBC, Fox, CBS, where you watch your NFL games, those are network television channels. Basic cable package. ESPN is not a network channel, it's a cable channel. BET is a cable channel. NBC Sports Network was a cable channel. So sometimes everybody can't get ESPN. Everybody can't get BET. And also, we got to look at it like this as well. BET, ESPN, for some providers, they have coverage disputes. So that means that sometimes ESPN is taken off the rotation for some streaming services. And also BET, it was just added in, I believe, 2021 on YouTube TV. And I have YouTube TV. So everyone does not have access to BET, to ESPN, to some of these other providers of content. So the Celebration Bowl has consistently been the only HBCU game that's been broadcasted on network television, the top four networks. Now the Bayou Classic is going to be on NBC, and the numbers were high. And here's the thing, the Celebration Bowl and the Bayou Classic is also consistent with cable broadcasted HBCU football games. You have the MEAC SWAC Challenge. I have the numbers from 2017 to 2021 right here, as you can see them. And also I added in the Orange Blossom Classic because I wanted to add in those games that were high profile, where the numbers were accessible. So of course, yeah, you have like the numbers that they peak. And you had in 2021, the MEAC SWAC Challenge, it peaked at 1 million viewers. That was Alcorn versus North Carolina Central last year. But you look at the Orange Blossom Classic, you have 700,000 viewers. That was Deion Sanders' first game. Then you have the 2022 Orange Blossom Classic. That was Travis Hunter's first game. 958,000 viewers. The Orange Blossom Classic, ESPN2. And remember, you had Coach Willie Simmons and Deion Sanders, Coach Prime. They were arguing, why can't we get ESPN? Why can't we get a larger platform? And of course, the reason behind it was that the U.S. Open was going on. So the U.S. Open had the spots, I think, on ABC, on ESPN. So ESPN2 was the place. And we'll give you that. But why can't HBCUs have more opportunities to be accessible to non-HBCU fans? And I want to just note this. The MEAC SWAC Challenge, especially if Deion Sanders does stay at Jackson State, because at the time of this recording, he's still there, you know. But if Deion Sanders stays at Jackson State, the 2023 MEAC SWAC Challenge is scheduled to feature South Carolina State versus Jackson State. And that's a rematch of the 2021 Celebration Bowl. And I think that people are going to want to see that because that's the one HBCU that Deion Sanders has lost to thus far since he got his players, got his team in 2021. So we can expect that to maybe have between 900,000 to 1 million viewers. So what the ratings numbers tell me is that if HBCU football is given accessibility and a platform, viewership is going to come. And that high number of viewership is going to translate to advertising revenue for the networks and the conferences. And we have to negotiate our worth. And we can't negotiate our worth in the truest sense if we don't have that accessibility. But when we are accessible to non-HBCU fans, to diehard HBCU fans, to our students, to community supporters, to family members of these athletes, to other athletes that want to see what HBCU football is about, we perform well. So I believe that HBCU sports conferences honestly need to handle their media rights like the NBA, the NFL, and the MLB because we're promoting a specific product. we're promoting an experience that comes with the sports games. You see the NBA, they engage ESPN, they give them a swath of games. They have the Wednesday and Friday games. You have TNT, they have the Tuesday games during the NFL season. Then in the spring, you're going to see them have the Thursday games again. And we're hearing that Amazon and Apple might hop in the fray. You have the NFL that has Amazon Prime streaming some of their games. You have MLB that has Apple streaming some of their games. You have soccer that has Apple streaming some of these games and Peacock streaming some of these games. So you have these sports leagues that are using their media rights and divvying them up amongst other media providers to basically help promote the product. So in 2022, 2023 and beyond, why don't HBCUs do this? And I believe that network television and also cable still has value because streaming services are used by the majority of the population. That is true. But there's nothing like a sporting event being on one channel and everyone watching it in mass consumption, because that's what we've been trained to do for years. Now that trend might change, and it's true that we should be on streaming services, but network television and cable television still gives us the opportunity to reach fans that are not built in, that are not your typical fan. Like that might watch this game and they might want to see more games. They might watch a Jackson State game for Deion Sanders or Travis Hunter or Shedeur Sanders, and they might see a player on the team that they like. And they might start watching other games, and they might start being invested in the atmosphere and the energy that is around HBCU football and the history that comes with it. You have to put your product in front of people. And that's the thing that I have gotten frustrated with when it comes to the discussion about HBCU media rights. Because it's one thing about money, but it's another thing about accessibility and really promotion. I believe just the SIAC, the CIAA, the SWAC, and the MEAC, they have to treat their media rights like the NBA, NFL, MLB, and other sports leagues do, because they utilize the platform of Fox, NBC, ESPN, ABC, Amazon Prime, Apple to promote the product. And I think that as we look at media rights and as we continue to have this conversation, I believe we have to look at it in that way. You have to spread out your media rights to other broadcast and streaming providers to help in accessibility and discovery of the content. And if we don't, we're going to keep staying in the space where the bad faith talking points are going to take over. Oh, HBC football games it lacks in viewership, and that's why folks don't come, because they want to get exposure by going to this white school that's on Flow Sports. like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like this stuff, it makes no sense. It really makes no sense, like, at this point. And I feel as if we can do something about it. Shout out to HBCU League Pass Plus. Shout out to HBCU Go. Shout out to Aspire TV that has broadcasted HBCU football games this season. And ESPN has had its place, and they've done good presentation. But we have to move differently if we want to continue to grow our money opportunities and exposure for our conferences. And hopefully these numbers help open people's minds, and maybe we go to the negotiation table with a little bit more power when our deals run out. But that's it for me. Make sure to follow HBCU Pulse on Instagram and YouTube at HBCU Pulse, Twitter and TikTok, the HBCU Pulse. Make sure to subscribe to HBCU Pulse Radio, the podcast, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and wherever you get your podcast. We have a special announcement coming up soon on that. And last but certainly not least, make sure to watch HBCU Pulse TV, channel 201 on the streaming service, HBCU League Pass Plus. But thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, we'll see you on the other side.
Like what you hear?
Yeah.
Subscribe to HBCU Pulse Radio on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Also, head to HBCUPulse.com to stay up to date on what's going on in the HBCU community. Thank you for listening to HBCU Pulse Radio.